Alderman Reading,
Here.
Alderman Bullock,
Here.
Alderman Statter, Alderman Tridwood, Alderman Duchild, Alderman Boston,
Here.
Alderman Vincent,
Here.
Alderman Tishless. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And two, before we get started, I just want to let you know, of course, I'm not Mayor Roby. I'm the president of the board, Mike Tishless. And got in touch, actually, the mayor contacted me today. He had a last minute family emergency that came up and could not make it for tonight's meeting. So I'll be sitting in for him. We have two presentations tonight from two different firms. We discussed them here in our meetings in the past with the board regarding helping guide us through a comprehensive plan for the city, one that we haven't done. We haven't done such a thing in many years now. So one of the firms that we invited will be the first to speak will be members from Housesal Lavigne. And if they would come up to the podium now, or a representative come up to the podium. And I would ask that, and I believe you folks know that we're trying to keep this on time because there is another meeting in the chambers here when we conclude. So there'll be possibly people gathering outside, so we don't want to run over time-wise. So I'll just ask, of course, that you keep your presentation to 20 minutes. Once it's concluded, we'll have a short amount of time for questions. And then when that's concluded, we'll invite in the second firm. So would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Absolutely.
Begin. Thank you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. We're thrilled to have this opportunity. I'm Dan Gardner, I'm principal with Housal Lavigne Associates. And with me is Devin Levine, principal co-founder of Housal Lavigne, and Drew Awesome, senior associate with the firm. We also have Hanson Professional Services as a member of our team. We work with Hanson on several different projects and are working with Hanson. Hanson is a St. Louis-based transportation engineering firm. Will be helping us out with those related issues. The goal here this evening is really to get you a little bit better acquainted with us, our understanding of the project, and who we are and our approach. Housal Lavigne Associates, as I said, with me this evening is Drew and Devin. We are an award-winning firm. We've won awards throughout the country. We specialize in community planning, urban design, and economic development. That's what we do. That is the core basis of our firm. Comprehensive plans is the hallmark. This is our main concentration. We've done planning throughout the country. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our experience and the plans that we've done. The firm was built on the founding principles of better community outreach, commitment to creativity, graphic communication, technology integration, and ultimately client satisfaction. We always say that we're not satisfied until our clients are satisfied, and we're only as good as our least happy client. And I'm happy to say that I don't think we have any unhappy clients. But our backgrounds are all coming from either from government or from larger firms. And we all want to get into the kind of the hands-on approach on a smaller environment and being able to work directly with the clients. You see three of us here this evening, that's who you're going to see. We don't sell the project and then hand it off to junior staff. As I said, we have national planning experience. I've done over 60 comprehensive plans. We're working in 21 different states. Each time we come into a community, with the exception of the state of Illinois, it's the first time we're there. So we do hear the thought or the concern about being the outside firm. I can assure you that's not the case. And in fact, what that brings is we bring best practices and things that we learn from other areas and other communities to the table. We also never come into a community with preconceived notions or thinking we know what's best. We start over every single time. All of our plans have a certain look and feel. You can tell for sure is one of our plans. But the community outreach and vision and the participation by the community is such an important part. And that's what we do at the front end of every project. We'll go through our scope in a few minutes, but just to give you an idea, we come in knowing that the people that live here, work here, this is your community. And has to reflect the vision of the community. It's not our vision. We won, as I said, awards. The one we're perhaps most proud of is last year at the National Conference for the American Planning Association, we won Firm of the Year, recognized by our peers in other cities and contributors of being the top firm in the country at what we do. And it's not something we take lightly. It's something that we feel like we certainly earned, but we are very humbled by that award. And John Houseal and I accepted the award last year. The relevant project experience that we're going to go through in a second includes comprehensive plans, corridor plans, community development, economic development. We'll go through some of our project experience, but what I first want to do is have Drew kind of walk you through some of our understanding of the community.
Thanks, Dan. Like Dan said, one of the approaches we like to take when we come in and we start looking at how to scope work or how to approach planning in a community is we like to take an initial high-level look at the community, what we know about it from its past plans, but also what we see on the ground. A key part is we'll talk about in the scope. We drive every street, every block, look at every parcel, get out of the car, walk around. We have big map books that we write notes on. We take photographs. So we do a small version of that, just even in preparation for a proposal. And so this is an overview of some of the things we would anticipate would be key parts of a comprehensive planning project. The highest level thing is we know, you guys know I'm from the St. Louis area. If you say Crestwood, the people throughout the St. Louis area, if they know nothing else, they know the history of the mall site. And that's critical. You guys are working on that piece now. You RFP'd it separately, makes a lot of sense. Different scales, different level of intensity, that's something that has to get addressed. But we wanted to make sure, and hopefully this captures it, that the essence of a comprehensive plan is comprehensive. It addresses everything about the community. From some of you things you guys talk about, the community for a lifetime, the community of families, the residential quality of life, those are important pieces that have to be focused on. Whether that's through community facilities, parks, how you maintain your residential housing stock over time. Those are things that need to be a focus too, and is traditionally addressed through a comprehensive plan. So, a few areas we wanted to talk about is Watson. Obviously, that's your main commercial corridor, your business district. That's critically important to the community. Provides local services, but also important revenue base for the municipality. And it's really one business district that stretches from the mall site in the east, really all the way out to 270, where Watson terminates at the interchange near the Panera World headquarters. That's how the market's going to see it. That's how retailers, developers, business investors are going to see it. This is one central business district. This is one trade area. So understanding how the mall fits in with that, and how Crestwood fits in with the entire Watson corridor. That's something we want to spend time on and make sure that it's programmed to address things like the shallow lots, narrow access, lots of ingress, egress, and cross-access issues to the corridor that's typical of those mid-century retail corridors. Sorry, I skipped that. One thing that's interesting too is Crestwood is really defined by a lot of its mid-century history, early suburban history, but it's unique from other similar sort of auto-defined suburbs because it has some unique 19th century history. Louisiana Purchase ties, early St. Louis days, from the Thomas Sappington House, obviously all of that in the city limits, the proximity to Ulysses S. Grant, Whitehaven, Hardscrabble, Grant's Farm, those types of things. All of that adds a character to the area and to the community that's going to distinguish itself from other places that were just simply agricultural lands at the time and developed as a suburb later on. The city's used Sappington House and some historical programming to add that, but we think that's an area that we could get into, take a look at and strengthen that, make that part of the community character and identity, makes it a more appealing and unique place to buy a home and raise a family. So I've touched on Crestwood Plaza. It's still important. The comprehensive plan, we need to incorporate it. A lot of times what a comprehensive plan to look at is a downtown plan or a sub-area study or corridor study and get into that gritty level of detail, site-specific recommendations. You guys are going to accomplish that through your RFP process for the development site, working with the other projects. So we need to work with what's going to go on with that site, which is critical to the community and its redevelopment, but make sure that site's cohesive with the rest of the Watson corridor, with the Chinooks and Best Buy Center that's across the street, so that all of that redevelopment works together. Whatever happens at the Plaza site is a catalyst for the rest of the Watson corridor, that it's not sort of an island or a one-off redevelopment opportunity. obviously, that's a unique piece of U.S. history, and it has a lot of ties here in the St. Louis area, from Ted Drew's in the city to things like Coral Court Motel, or the 66 Park Inn that was here in Crestwood. So there's some pieces like the bowling alley that still harken back to that era, but there's things you could do, whether that's through the streetscaping or the urban design guidelines for the corridor. But that's another piece that separates the community from other suburban areas that makes it unique, is you have this deep history that goes from U.S. Grand in the 19th century to early post-war history to it's still a very vibrant, healthy place to live, raise a family, make those types of investments. That's another area we would dig into more and figure out how that can help strengthen that community brand, or strengthen the community identity within the St. Louis region. A couple other pieces to touch on is trails and bicycle planning. If folks go beyond the mall, that's probably something else they know about, is Grant's Trail and access to the regional trail networks. You guys have been doing things like the Crestwood Family Bike Fest, connecting into that. Great Rivers Greenway has their large regional plan. The River to Pear is a key piece of that. So those are things we need to look at. You can go into further detail, but a lot of times through a comprehensive plan, you can capture that bike, trail, sidewalk connectivity, that pedestrian mobility piece through a comprehensive plan. Look at where that infrastructure needs to be put in to close gaps, how to improve the connectivity, which corridors make sense for trails. Those are things that we would look at in a Parks and Rec chapter within the plan. Directly tied to that is Crestwood's benefited from some other compared to other suburban areas, it has some real high quality natural amenities. Obviously you guys have Crestwood Park, White Cliff Park, you have a number of smaller neighborhood parks that serve those areas. We have a mature tree canopy. Many of your residential streets are tree lined. There's lots of parkway trees. The Gravois Creek at certain stretches is beautiful greenway. Other places have been more developed and is more managed as a stormwater piece of infrastructure. That's another piece to look at. There's lots of studies demonstrates those kind of tree canopies, those natural areas, access to parks, that adds value to residential properties. It attracts people to the community. It differentiates you from newer suburban areas being built in cornfields or further out into the region. So that's something that needs to be preserved. There's a toolbox of strategies to work on how to use those natural areas, not just for environmental reasons, but to preserve those values and attract people to the community. And that directly ties to we think one of the key pieces, especially with some of the other work going on with the plaza for the comprehensive plan, is going to be building again a toolbox or a suite of strategies, investments, policies, different best practices on residential reinvestment. We talked about in our proposal and the understanding that about 73% of your housing stock was built in that immediate post-war era in the 50s, 60s. Now the good things are it's still overwhelmingly owner-occupied. It still retains a lot of value. It's still one of the more exclusive, attractive places in the St. Louis region. You have Lindbergh Schools, which is fantastic. So it's in really strong shape. But you want to make sure that over the next generation, you see that reinvestment. So we'd be able to go through as we drive every block, we look at every parcel. What are some of the streets where we see some issues, whether it's overhead utilities, a lack of sidewalks, curb and gutter isn't up to the standards for stormwater management today? That we say, well, you're going to need to see some reinvestment, whether it's on the public side, the private side, make sure these houses stay marketable as owner-occupied. The other streets where we say, these are in pretty good shape, these will continue to be marketable on the private side for years to come. We can help the city prioritize where those kind of public investments need to go from our residential reinvestment strategy. And then finally, talked a lot about how do you brand a community, how do you build a community identity. There's lots of ways to do that. Crestwood is certainly starting from a good position and can focus on strengthening that and enhancing that. So there's things like streetscaping, building monument gateways that signal you've come into Crestwood or you've come into a specific residential area or a neighborhood. You come into a business district or business node, looking at some of the main entrances, like the Big Bend interchange, along the Eddy and Park corridor, when you come in Grant from the backside of the park and the Anheuser-Busch property. Those are areas that right now it isn't exactly clear where you're at. Maybe other areas around here don't address that, but the more you guys strengthen, folks know they're in Crestwood and they know what being in Crestwood means. It's going to build that business competitiveness, that residential quality of life. It's going to build that sense of community identity that's going to attract people to want to be here and invest in here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Devin for the scope.
forward for planning in the state back in 2009. Really was becoming part of that community. And I think, you know, you might think of us as a Chicago firm. I'll let you know that one person in our office is from Chicago. The rest of us are from all over the country. I'm from Canada, I'm from St. Louis. So as we get into the community, we become a part of Crestwood. And so we will care for the community just like the residents do. We'll know the community just like the residents do. And recommend you call Janet Sanders in Jackson. She'll sort of testify to that. Building on the the Jackson Comprehensive Plan, we ended up getting hired at Fairview Heights, which is where we met Drew. Drew was the city administrator there. And a big part of this plan was keeping the St. Clair Center and the mall area vital, keeping the commercial areas vital. How do we address the sort of neighborhood dispute resolution related to the Ruby Road interchange, and then how to stabilize the residential areas. So some of the key issues we looked at in Fairview Heights was the stability of the residential areas and then maintaining the commercial areas as vital areas. You know, Muskogee, Oklahoma, they have an old dying mall. Really every issue that you could ever come across in the city is in Muskogee, Oklahoma, from troubled residential areas, heavy industrial, where industrial transitions right into residential. Really looked at everything within Muskogee. One of the things they did there, they sort of cannibalized their own mall by building strip and regional commercial up on the periphery. And they saw all the retail move out of the mall area, the corridor. So big strategy there was to revitalize the mall area in downtown, as well as a corridor plan, which is what we're proposing here is a Watson Road corridor plan. We did 5 corridor plans as a component of this comprehensive plan. St. Charles, Illinois, the Charlestown Mall is on the website, deadmalls.com, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but your mall's on there as well. It's a site that features all the dead malls. One of the concepts we did here, this is a 2-story indoor mall. We did 3 different redevelopment concepts for it as part of the comprehensive plan. It's under development right now. So
Excuse me, Mr. Green, just to let you know, you have 4.5 minutes.
Okay. It'll be called the Quad of St. Charles. Downers Grove, community outreach, can't stress this enough, it's vitally important. Did a lot of community outreach in this plan that earned us the top award in the state of Illinois for best plan. Reached out to elementary school children, church groups, really every facet of the community. The plan also integrated graphics like this, where we took a sort of a hole within their downtown and just through Photoshop showed them what it could be, help the residents sort of see the different types of recommendations. Brownsburg is just west of Indianapolis, and so how the Watson Road sort of functions as a conduit through the community. This is US 136. It connects the Indianapolis Motor Speedway out at Hendricks County. And the community had a big vision for this corridor. This is what it looks like now. You see one sort of stretch of sidewalk, not a lot of landscaping. We work with the community to identify a vision for that corridor. So adding things like landscaping, sidewalks. So when people are driving through the town of Brownsburg, you get a better idea of the positive perceptions about the community. In Coralville, Iowa, big thing here is often you'll get a comprehensive plan or some of the planning where you have one issue that dominates the community's agenda or dialogue. This was the issue in Coralville. And so with this plan, we know we need to transcend beyond the mall issue and take a whole look at the city of Crestwood together. And outreach is a big part. This is some of the outreach we did in the city of Flint. We can integrate keypad polling. So you see the driver building here. We can ask people if they like it. We give remotes to everyone in the community or everyone at the town hall meeting. We ask them to rate the buildings. So we're integrating real-time community outreach and sort of like a game show into our outreach. We also have a website and a tool that we've developed called SMAP. We use it in the city of Chicago. We now use it all over the world. It allows people to go in and make maps of their community. So everyone here can make a map of their Crestwood. And we can overlay then everyone's points to find out where the problematic intersections are, where are the community assets. And so if someone needs sidewalks here, right on top of Google Maps, they have a point to add sidewalks. Real quickly, I'll run through the anticipated process. We're proposing a 7-step planning process. We'll have an initiation meeting
Mr. Lavigne, 2 minutes.
with you. Community outreach up front. Drew mentioned we don't come in with preconceived notions. We're going to come in right up to the front and listen to the residents. So all the community outreach is at the front of the process. We'll conduct a detailed existing conditions analysis. Based on our understanding, we'll then re-engage the community to establish that long-range vision, goals, and objectives. We'll develop a Watson Road corridor plan, again, beyond real quickly, that's our 7-step process. I'll leave you with one final example of how a master plan can lead to success. This is Benton Harbor, Michigan. We used the neighborhood to help publicize the process. This was a real dying site on the edge of town, across the river from St. Joe, Michigan, where you have marinas and yacht club. We created this vision for the river. People thought we were crazy, but it's a really prominent piece of property. Someone took notice, started to develop it. It's now the headquarters of Whirlpool, so on the foundation of our master plan. So with that, I'll leave you these concluding remarks. We have a commitment to this project. Dan mentioned early, you'll see 3 of us. We're not going to hand it off. This is a commitment to our firm. You'll get all of our experience. We pledge creativity, and it'll be implementation oriented. So with that, I'll turn it over to Q&A.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Lavigne, and I have to say, congratulations, you kept it under time. 30 seconds, you kept it under time. Great. At this point, I would open it up to my colleagues here on the board. If they have any questions, they might ask you about, your process for developing a comprehensive plan and how you would make that successful for Crestwood. At this point, let's see, Alderman Wallach.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, Dan, I think I met you at the Sunset Hills location. Thanks for coming tonight. A couple of questions that I do have. Again, you may have touched on that on your presentation, but what methods does your company have that distinguish your company as an outreach to meet our citizens to get input compared to others?
Well, I mentioned real quickly that SMAP, that's an online mapping tool. That's a program that we developed. We've since turned it into its own company. We licensed it to cities all over the world. And so that's, I think, something we developed. We saw a hole in the community outreach process where if someone was out of town for a meeting, they sort of missed their opportunity to participate in the planning process. And so we create websites free of charge for all of our clients. As a component of that, we integrate SMAP. We also have a license to MindMixer, which is a sort of an idea generation platform that we provide at no charge. We have online questionnaires. In addition, we can do things like do-it-yourself kits, which is what we did in Benton Harbor, where there was a lot of civic distrust, not only from consultants, but just from government. And so we created a pamphlet that residents could sign out and kit up their own workshops. So it was a coffee clutch or a church group. They were able to conduct their own workshops. We put golf pencils in there, little forms. They fill out they conduct their own meetings, send us the results, and we integrate it into the entire plan. And we've done that. Oak Park, Illinois, I think we have about 50 different groups conduct do-it-yourself kits, do-it-yourself workshop kits. So, in addition, I think just our meetings, I think, are really well run. I think if you talk to any of our clients, it's very typical for a community workshop to have a round of applause. And so I think that we run a workshop well in addition to the innovative stuff like the web-based and do-it-yourself kits.
I also just want to add, all the technology-based outreach that we do is supplemented by, we recognize that everybody doesn't have access to or a desire or inclination to use. We produce hard copies of everything that we do. So we have draft documents, we post them online. We also provide hard copies of those as well. So we create that balance between traditional and technology-based outreach.
Okay, thank you. One other question on it. Again, Sunset Hills is doing their comprehensive plan, and we're going to be doing ours. And the question comes up is loyalty. And I don't know whether there really is loyalty in regards to what services you provide the community with, because you're reaching out to the community as to what the community wants. But if you could address those concerns that some may have in regards to loyalty as to whether some city may want a certain aspect, and would you sway some city to maybe look somewhere else because this other city is planning that? So if you could maybe address those concerns that some citizens may have.
Yeah, to me, I mean, we don't have a horse in the race in either of
I'm sorry, you have 2 minutes.
creating development. We're not developers. We don't work directly with developers. We create the plans that are best for the community and the region. 2 strong communities side by side is good for the region. What's good for one community is good for another. We have a long list of communities where we not only work with communities that are side by side, we work with 4 different communities creating comprehensive plans for those communities. that's that kind of approach of understanding the issues and working with the communities and being transparent in the process. And if nothing else, investors, developers, property owners want some fair certainty of what the understanding is of either development issues or what the expectations are of the community. And by having that kind of comprehensive, if you will, approach to the area, it's good for everybody. So I think that's one of the strengths. There's actually some benefit to doing that. So that's, I gotta say that we have done that in several different communities and it's worked very well.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Alderman Sarah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out tonight. This has been a terrific presentation. My question's very brief. Do you have a feel for the timeline it would take to put together this size and complexity of a comprehensive plan?
We pitched a 10 to 12 month process originally. I mean, we worked in, compressing that timeline or extending that time. We work with the community, so we'll work with you directly into what timeline works best for you.
But it is nice to maintain a momentum and a rhythm, so 10 to 12 months usually hits that. So there's some breaks between meetings and not too much time goes by between meetings.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I think we've reached our conclusion. There we go. The timer goes off, and I want to thank you for keeping it, within that time frame. Gentlemen, I want to again thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts about Crestwood's future and its comprehensive plan process.